Hey, Evan Rees here. I saw this question in the forum where Haggis was asking for some surfacing feedback and particularly cited having watched my other video and getting some out of that. They say that they're targeting FDM, fused deposition modeling, 3D printing, as the manufacturing process, and they're trying to smooth out some of these areas. And so I was starting to draft an answer, and then I realized maybe I might as well just record it because I was going to have to write way too much. So I've taken a little look at this model and thought through it a little bit. So I'm not going in totally blind here, but I just wanted to stop before I went any further and stream of consciousness what I'm thinking about here. First of all, so this is the blend in question, and it's looking pretty good. I'm going to section this part through the front plane, Shift X for that, just so we can zoom in and look around. So yeah, I mean, I think it's working, and that's what they said. It's working, but I want to back up and just talk a bit more about curvature in general and how it applies to manufacturing processes, because I'm seeing a lot of attention paid to detail, which is really cool to see. But there are also some ways in which the curvature that's been added in a lot of these places is really not adding value. Like it doesn't always, you don't always, more curvature is not always better, I guess is the point. It depends on what you're making, what part of the design you're looking at, how it's going to be manufactured, and a number of other factors. So for example, I'm seeing this nicely crowned surface at the top of this lip. But if we're printing this FDM and we're printing it top to bottom, then that's just going to cause this to have like aliasing with the layers. Like we're going to see very distinct layer steps where we might be better off with a single like flat top or even a slight like conical, like a slight chamfer. And so we just control where those layers break. So we're designing for the process that we're working with instead of designing the thing first and then hoping our process can accommodate it. Likewise, I'm seeing curvature continuous fillets here. No downside really, because it's easy to do just with the native fillet feature, but not much upside either because you're not going to be in here watching the light play off of these. And a lot of times curvature continuous things is just for controlling the way that light plays on the surface of an object. So if it's an area that's never going to really be seen, it's not really all that important. So here was the area in question, and as far as I understand this design, it's also really not going to be seen. It's maybe this lid pivots around is what happens. So for you to see this end goes down into the can, so you really never have the ability to look at this area anyway. So not sure that it matters all that much, but let's talk about it anyway. So this was the area in question. Here's where the blend features happen. So I'm going to roll back before that. And let's take a look at how we got here. So we have this cut, and it's creating this kind of odd cutout here that we want to blend out. And actually, one of the things that I noticed a little later in, because it was causing issues, but if you're observant, you can notice it now. When I click this face, you can see how we're getting this highlight all the way along the edge. That's a clue that something funny is happening. If I push W and box select right here, you can zoom in and actually see that this face continues. There's a tiny sliver of it, and that's going to cause us some challenges. And then the other thing that I'm noticing is the way that this was made. It was a revolve, and let's take a look at that. So we have this surface, and then it was split here and revolved. Maybe was it revolved about that split axis? No, it was revolved about the hinge. So it's not quite revolving about the center of this circle, which means that I guess this is technically creating a toroidal face, like part of a donut, but a very squashed donut. Here, let me show what I mean by that. By moving this make connector, I'm going to set this to new and make it full rotation. Doesn't like it. Oh yeah, I suppose that does make sense. So let's see, this is the body that we're getting. We'll isolate that and we'll take a look. So this is already kind of an odd way to make, like this surface is going to have kind of a weird structure to it, I suspect. Let me turn on U and V. So yeah, we're getting this kind of bonkers looking. The combs are all the way down. This grid is kind of odd, the way that it's having to create that. So that could cause us some challenges. And really, this is a circle, and if we were to rotate it or revolve it right around that edge, this would be a sphere. And we're rotating it just off from the center. So I would actually argue that it maybe approximates to a sphere. Or even if it doesn't, maybe it should. So here's what I would suggest. Instead of bothering to do all of that blend, really what probably ought to happen, I'm just going to sketch on the front plane, draw, I guess, a center point arc, something like this. And I'm not using great practices here because I'm just going to actually make this concentric with that. And in reality, I probably ought to dig into the model and find the highest reference I can, like whatever, yeah, probably this sketch or whatever is driving the position of that center. So that's what I probably ought to do. And then let's see, I think that we just want to pierce here. That's a pierce constraint. And then this one, I don't know if it will pierce. It probably will not. Yeah. And that's because we have an arc and it just actually doesn't pass through that edge. But it really doesn't matter actually where that goes too much. I'm just going to dimension it how much below the center line it is and make it 50. It doesn't matter. Then I'll revolve that as a surface. That edge, I'm going to revolve it about the origin on I'm using an implicit mate connector. And then I'm just going to hit replace face, replace that face with this face. And now I've got a place for the lid to go, and I haven't created the surfacing challenge to begin with. So we've got this cleaner surface, and really when this thing's all put together, it's not going to matter. So realistically, that's probably how I would solve this problem, is by not making it in the first place. And I think that actually looks better anyway. It looks better than a nice blend because it's just even smoother and more continuous. That's probably how I would handle it. But if we were going to say like, no, actually we really, really need the blend, let's figure that out. This is by way of me actually answering the question at hand. So let's see here. Oh, I've got to turn this back to a remove. So now we're left with this. How would I actually handle this? Well, this is kind of the extreme limit. I cannot add material to there. So I don't want to have a blend edge out here because if it ramps up. So really I'm going to treat this as one of my hard limits. And then I need to have some other edge over here that I can blend to. One way that I might approach this is using a body to create my split lines. And I like using my profile sweeper custom feature, grab one of these curves, and I've got it set to circle, and then I can change the diameter, which is kind of gonna be an offset for us. So it doesn't matter too much, I'm doing it by eye. Then I like to use thicken on the ends to extend them because I can do both at once. I hit the tilde key so I could select through that face. And now I can get these extended out. But actually, what I don't love is this. That edge coming really close to that edge. I'd rather it just be flush. So what I'm going to do is actually not pick that bottom one. Let's see. Get rid of that. We'll just extend the first one. I'm going to use replace face again. I'm going to replace that face. I'm using the tilde key again to get underneath all of these things. Oops. I need to do it in this field. There we go. And let me just section so you can see what I'm actually doing here. There we go. So now this face is nice and flush. And I know that the arc actually does, come out at a certain angle. It's almost tangent to the top. But I don't think we need all of that. So for the blend, so I'm actually going to roll before the thicken and use move face, set to rotate. I'll move that face, rotate about this. Again, I'm not using a great like robust modeling practice. I'm just grabbing convenient edges and whatever. Realistically, if you're trying to do a great job, you should roll as high up in the tree as you can and find something that's more stable than this edge. 20 degrees, sure, let's do that. And then I'm gonna increase the thicken until it passes all the way through the object. Since I'm just doing one, an extrude would work too, and then I could say set like to through all. And then I would probably like split this face with these faces. What are we working with? Do I like that? Kind of, but we still have to kind of deal with this craziness here. So maybe a way to do that. Sometimes you can move face down and then back up and it'll make problems go away. So I'm going to move it by 1 millimeter and then move it back up by 1 millimeter. And yeah, that seems to have done the trick. So now we're dealing with a little bit of a cleaner thing up here. When I do stuff like this, I really am careful to name that. Be like, you can name it something long. You could do something like that. This move phase helps to remove an odd edge created by revolve 2, or whatever it is that you want to say. You have 256 characters. It's longer than a tweet. So you can get a lot of info in there, and when you mouse over it, you see the whole thing. All right, let's see how we're looking. If we roll to here. Somehow that flipped my profile sweeper direction. See that? So that's not what we want. I'm gonna go back up here. The face to replace will be that face. The face to move is this face. The face to thicken is also this face. Cool. So now we've got this face split out from the rest of it. See here. It might be the way to go to just use these edges and then cut it away. Let me try a boundary surface from here to here. And I'm going to open these up and put some more surfaces inside like that. Oh, wrong one. Zooming in because yeah, okay. It's still funky. My move face did not like just make all of our problems go away. All right, for the split, I'm actually going to split the top face as well. I'm going to split that face and this face and maybe cut away some of those sections. I've created some weird tiny faces down here. I would really probably realistically back up and just avoid making those in the first place if I could figure out a way to do that. All right, I'm going to set both of these to curvature. We'll see what happens. It doesn't like it for that. What does tangent give us? that works. I'm not sure why, but there is a little funk, I think, going on with the way some of this was modeled to begin with. It's causing some challenges. Only planar faces. Oh, match tangent. What we may want to do to avoid that tricky area, actually, is I'm gonna redo this whole split method. I'm gonna do something else. I'm just gonna do it as a sketch. On the front plane, I'm gonna offset these. Perfect. I'm going to also use this and this to convert it. If you delete the when you convert an entity, or use, convert, whatever, what it does is creates that entity, and then everything here, the edge itself has a constraint that is the use, but also the endpoints do, and you can delete those and slide the endpoints around. So that's what I'm going to do here. And when you offset, the endpoints are not constrained, and I have always found that a little odd, but I suppose it works. So I'm going to make those both horizontal, and for these, I'm going to connect them with a line like this, make it coincident with the center, so now they are kind of perpendicular, or connected in a perpendicular way. Then I'll just come in here with some straight lines that I'm going to use to split. Grab both those, T for tangent, grab both those, T for tangent. And I don't actually have to connect these, but I suppose I can, no harm. I'm gonna grab this face, that point, hit I for coincident. And now the only decision I have left to make is what angle this is going to make. And I can dimension it from the top plane. If I grab the top plane first from the tree, and then over here, and let's say 35 is what we want. Cool. Now we've got a well-controlled blend. I'm actually, the only other thing I want to do is go up from that default blend. Let's push it all the way here. And the nice thing about this being a sketch is I could actually delete this and dimension that from here instead, if I want. Okay, now I'm going to split. I'm actually going to extrude these. Through all. And this is so that when I split, since this is one face and this is one face, it would, if I use the sketch, it'll work, but it'll split the other side too. Which I suppose realistically, this whole thing ought to be modeled 1/2 at a time and then mirrored just once at the end. That's always a better way to work if you can get away with it. But I'm not handling that right now. I'm just going to work on this blend. So split, I'm going to split this face and that face because I want to cut off that little corner up there. And the entities, I'm going to actually just grab surface 3 from my viewport down here because it's all connected because I did bridge across here. It's just one thing instead of having to pick each individual face of that. And uncheck keep tools and stuff. I don't need that again. Okay, now, did we get the split up here that we wanted? Doesn't look like it. I'm going to change the color of this just for now to make it a little easier for me to see. Maybe this face being flush right there is actually, I'm running into like a tolerance problem. That could be. So I'm going to undo that and bring these down a little bit and see if having them touching was actually causing a problem. Let's do 0.5 just to get them past. That wasn't it. Selected entities do not split selected faces. Doesn't seem true. All right, because that's not splitting right now, I don't know if it's because it's like flush up against that face and, you know, we're running into, again, maybe tolerance kind of stuff. So I'm gonna actually move face on all of these just a tiny bit. 0.1 doesn't matter too much how much. It won't let me move them in. Am I missing one of the faces? Oh yeah. Yeah, so this is the kind of stuff that you can run into if you've worked in a way that just ends up with some wacky stuff like that, and it can cause you all kinds of little headaches like this. So working really clean from the top is definitely helpful. All right, the other way to do that instead of the move face is to make my sketch actually split a little bit outside. Connect that, make that coincident. I'm kind of hacking and slashing here. I would do this tidier for a nice production model. Okay, we got that to split. So now it's time to delete the face. I've got it set to leave open. I'm gonna right click this and select tangent connected. And I'm gonna remember that I have my wacky little face here, which again, I would probably go back and fix for real instead of just kind of wallpapering over the problem. I also, when I split, I am gonna split this face and that face and delete those two because I'm gonna rebuild them with a new shape. Okay, now I think we've got a fairly clean thing going on here. That's a nice edge. When we got rid of those faces, it didn't split it into a teeny tiny face or edge up there, so I'm looking out for that. Roll to here. Let's see if our boundary surface can handle this. Select tangent connected. Select tangent connected. Could not extract valid boundary conditions. None. Set to new. Oh goodness. I have I'm a little blown away by that error. Excuse me. I can't be 100% sure, but I think that's something to do with that weird revolve that we talked about is causing something like this to happen. And I honestly haven't run into a problem that looks quite like that. That's remarkable. I'm honestly surprised it could generate anything at all. Look at this surface. Wow. So yeah, about that. Probably it seems like a way to clean that up would again be to revolve and replace face. Like this surface, again, just to show the grid, because it was made from that odd revolve, it has all this wacky stuff going on. And that kind of grid is probably just going to cause us a bunch of heartache, which it's doing right now. So I'm going to sketch on the front plane. This is the hack and slash solution, not the good solution. This is like, I'm like modeling over old features and just like trying to make it fixed and all that, which is fine if you're just getting it done. But if you're working on something that is CAD, you're going to have to maintain for a while. Don't do it that way. Go back and actually make your CAD right. Name your stuff as you go. But I'm just kind of like trying to like whip out a solution here for this video. So there we go. Let's take a look at this grid instead. Tidy. Much better. So now if I replace face, and look at how close it is. It shouldn't be exactly the same, but it's pretty close. So I'm going to replace that face with this face. Did I do that right? I think I got it backward. Revolve 2. Flipping alignment worked for some reason. Not sure. And I can delete that surface now because I don't need it. And I think now that we've done that, suddenly we might be in a better place down here. Yeah. So something about the way that revolve was made was really causing this model a lot of heartburn. Let me try to match tangent now. Let me see if I can match curvature. It does it. It just is like, we're not totally sure if it's perfect. Faces will be that. That's okay. I think tangent is going to be okay. Can I add? Yeah. I was also having some issues even before the video, like getting it to add together. And I think a lot of the root of the problem is the way that the lid clearance, this revolve, was done. From here, I can just use the fill command. There, and there. Shift enter to repeat at the bottom. I'm going to get my section view back on before I do that. All right, it's not perfect. This edge is not even showing as tangent, but for an FDM print, I really don't think it's gonna matter. So the real solution is to not have to do this at all. Like even if you model this in perfect curvature continuity, like curvature continuity doesn't make a design good. It can make poor continuity can make a good design kind of look sloppy, but it doesn't make a bad design look good. And I'm not saying this is a bad design, but I'm saying if we can get rid of this bump altogether, which is like visual clutter, then that will be even cleaner than doing perfect surfacing right here. Okay, hope that's helpful. Bit of a ramble today because it's just kind of like an impromptu side note. I'm not really planning my train of thought as much, but hopefully you found that useful. And sometimes watching somebody struggle through something is actually the most valuable part. So hopefully you think so too. Thanks for watching.